conscious discipline and our time together. The goal of conscious discipline is permanent behavior changes in adults and children. It's based on a brain state model that explains how and why we discipline as we were disciplined and parent as we were parented, unless we become conscious adults. Conscious awareness provides us the opportunity to make a choice, and choice is the basis of free will. Today, we're going to be talking about the power of free will, which states the only person you can make change is yourself. Now, heaven knows we have tried to make others change in all kinds of situations. Just reflect on your own life. How many of you have tried to make a smoker quit smoking, a drinker quit drinking, a miserable person happy, or an 8-month-old eat that smushed up pea stuff? It all ends up the same way, ultimately, which is in a power struggle. The traditional model of discipline says it is our job to make other people behave. It's our job to control others. Conscious discipline says controlling and changing ourselves is possible and has a profound impact on others. So the traditional model says it is possible to make others change. Failure to make others change equals failure. So in essence, we're teaching might makes right. Conscious discipline says changing myself is possible. As an adult, it is my choice to decide whether or not to change. I can become the person I want to be. It's based on this power of free will. Traditional model says when I succeed in making others behave, I demonstrate my power and authority. And so power comes from overruling others. Whereas in conscious discipline, by choosing to control myself instead of others, I feel empowered, and power comes from within. Traditional model says when I fail to make someone else obey, it is their fault. You have done something wrong. You must change. I am entitled then to blame you or blame others for their failure to comply with me. In conscious discipline, it says when things don't go my way, I will seek solutions. I am responsible for my feelings and actions. In a traditional model, conflict is viewed as bad, disruptive, and it must be eliminated and stopped. And if you were good enough, conflict can be eliminated. So in conscious discipline, we realize that conflict is an essential part of life, and it presents me with an opportunity to learn missing skill or let go of a limiting belief. Conflict's a part of life, and mistakes offer opportunities to learn. In the traditional model, rules and consequences govern behavior. So if I can just get the right rule and the right consequence, all children should behave. In conscious discipline, we believe that to be a myth, and connectedness governs behavior. And the traditional model says children must feel bad in order to behave better in the future, which in essence says revenge is the answer to life's upsets. Conscious discipline says in order for children to learn how to behave, they must be taught. We teach others how to treat us. They can't magically know unless we instruct them. The traditional model says fear is the best motivator, and fear is more powerful than love. And in conscious discipline, love is more powerful than fear because cooperation is more effective than coercion. So when we take hold of the power of free will and say that I'm going to let go of trying to control you and I'm going to put the emphasis back on controlling me, we make a huge shift in our intention, we make a huge shift in our behavior, and we make a huge shift in the question we ask ourselves. So when a child's misbehaving, often we'll hear people say, how do I get my child to do their homework? How do I get the child to finish their work? How do I get the child to take a nap? Now, whatever question we asked our brain will look for the answer. So if I say, how do I get/force, my brain's going to search all those coercive, manipulative things I've ever heard about and give me a long list of things to try. Also, if I said, how do I help my child be successful, my brain searches a different part of me and it looks for different types of solutions. How can I help the child be successful? So when we take hold of the power of free will, we shift our question. Instead of saying, how do I get/make the child behave, I'm going to ask myself, how do I help the child be successful? Now let me give you a story. I'm out of the school just a couple weeks ago, and many of you who work in schools know that the cafeteria can be a disaster. It's loud, it's noisy, and everybody tries all kinds of stuff. They have yellow cups and red cups and inside voices and a whole of people going around going, shh, raising your hand. I mean, they've got all kinds of tricks trying to go into that cafeteria. Well, some children just can't handle that noise. It's just overwhelming for almost anyone. People hate cafeteria duty. What they did was they said, how do we help these most difficult children who are struggling so much with the cafeteria, constantly being removed? And they said, how can we help them be successful? Simple solution. Have them eat in another room where it's quieter and more organized. Also, these two boys, these were in 5th grade, and in the cafeteria again, they wouldn't stop talking. They got louder and louder and louder, kept talking, and the teacher actually asked, what would help you to quiet down in the cafeteria and talk less in the classroom so that you can focus on learning? And they said, we don't get any time to really chat. They let those two eat in a different room by themselves with each other. Now, what that did was simply solve the cafeteria problem, and they quit talking in the classroom because they had time to catch up. Now, you might think, oh my gosh, that's reinforcing bad behavior, or if you let these two do it, everybody will want to do it. Or you can say, how do I help these 2 children, these 10 children, these 15 children be successful in this school, in this situation, based on their current needs? And if you build a school family, of course, everyone goes, sure, please, they're driving me nuts too, take them over there. So we want to shift our question, how do I help children be successful, as opposed to how do I get them to behave, and exercise that power of free will. So once we shift our intention shifts everything. Everything, you know this. When someone comes to you with the intention of being cooperative, you can let down your guard. When they come to you with this intention to confront you, you know it before they arrive, and you start guarding up. Okay, so now, how do we get to this skill of free will? How do we get to free will? Well, this brings us to our brain state model, the conscious discipline brain state model. Many of you watching have had a brilliant moment. You have accessed the higher centers of your brain, and wisdom came out of your mouth. You had conflict between 2 kids, conflict with a parent, conflict with your spouse, and the right words at the right time just fell out of you, and that conflict went and dissipated. So you had a brilliant moment. Now, when we have a brilliant moment, we're accessing the higher centers of our brain called the frontal lobes, or the prefrontal lobes. Also, many of you have had other moments that you would call not so brilliant. And if I asked you this question, how many of you that have children have said, when I grow up and I have my own children, I will never blank them, whatever that blank may be? And how many have already blanked them and did it quite soon? Well, that's because in the lower deep structures in our brain, we have, in essence, a stimulus response part of us that's created almost like a CD-ROM. So when emotional upset happens, we go into the lower centers of our brain, and it's like it's getting recorded on a CD-ROM. So then as we grow up and our buttons get pushed, we insert that same CD-ROM, and out comes the same voice that our parents had, the same voice that our teacher had. And that's why we parent as we were parent and teach as we were taught, unless we become consciously aware. In other words, unless we can get to this higher center of our brain where we can access free will, as opposed to pre-programmed responses from a younger time. So what happens then? Our button gets pushed, CD-ROM starts playing. So I want to ask you right now, and I want you to watch some of these slides coming up. What is on your CD-ROM? What happens when you get stressed? What happens when someone pushes your button? And the button could be back talking, it could be whining, it could be I've asked you 3 times and you don't respond, and that could be, ooh, that gets me. So watch these and see. Because these are the tools we pass down. So if you are a screamer, then we often teach children that same skill, to scream at their friends. We have spanked, then we teach children that hitting is an option. If we love and snuggle and connect, we teach them that kindness is as a tool that they'll need. If we yell and scream and shake our finger, then we'll teach the kids to do the same. And that will be in their toolbox. And that'll be on their CD-ROM. So now if we're talking about the power of free will, we've got to look at the brain. So basically there are 3 states, inner states. One of them is a survival state when we feel threatened, and that brings out the animal instincts in us to fight and flight or just roll over like a dog and submit. We also have an emotional state when the world triggered by the world not going our way, and this gives us that CD-ROM, and that just kind of gets installed. And then we have a relaxed alert state. That's called the zone. Everybody wants to be in the zone. Football players want to be in the zone. Mathematicians want to be in the zone. Everybody wants to get in that zone where your brilliance just kind of comes out. It's effortless. So that is in our prefrontal lobe. That's our executive state. So what we want to do is we want to provide opportunities for children to access their free will, and we want to provide opportunities for us to access our free will. We have to have then, what do we build our classrooms on? We have to build them on safety, so we feel safe enough so that that animal part of us is down, girl. We have to build connections so that an emotional part of us feels like we belong and we're valued and we're loved. And then we have to provide stimulation, problem solving in social settings, so that prefrontal lobe goes, I got an idea, I got it, this is what we can do. I can look for solutions, I can see the problem, I can find my solutions. So that's one way to access our free will. We have to understand our brain, and we have to provide environments that allow us to get to this higher centers of our brain. Now, some people believe we don't even have free will. And it could be, maybe we do, maybe we don't. But at this next slide you'll see, it's called free will or free won't. So some people did a lot of experiments, and here's what happened. Okay, so let's say here, I'll show you my clicker. I'm going to push this button. So when I get ready to push this button and I make a conscious decision to push this button, here's what happens. First, 7 seconds before I consciously decide to push the button, my brain's already started doing the activity before I even know I'm going to do it. 7 seconds before I'm consciously aware I'm going to push this button, my brain starts this activity. 1 second before I push the button itself, I consciously decide to push the button. So what's happening in all this time? Well, it gives me the opportunity to either push it or not push it. So it's not like it's not like free will, but it's free won't. Am I going to push it or not push it? Am I going to eat the pizza or not eat the pizza? Am I going to stick my finger in the light socket, or is it going to show up at the right moment? So we have about 7 seconds in there for free want. And that free want is called self-control. So it's an aspect of free will that's concerned with stopping an action as opposed to a choice of choosing an action. But whether we willfully choose an action or we willfully stop this action and choose this action, we must have a healthy, functioning prefrontal lobe. We have to still get to the higher centers of our brain. So Historically, we have been taught, and we talked about those traditional models at the beginning. Historically, we were taught to use fear as our main discipline strategy for children. Wait till your father gets home. You want something to be, I'll give you something to cry about. I'm going to leave this house without you. 1, I mean it this time. 2, you better get dressed. 3, I will abandon you. I will leave you. I will hurt you. You better do what I say. Now, with that, we throw children into the lower centers of their brain, into that animal part of us, where some kids, and you know these kids, they'll fight back. Oh, no, you won't. Someone will run from you and go hide up under the bed, and you'll go try to get them, and the others will just submit, and they'll go, okay, I'll clean the room. But again, you got about a 33% chance of success with that. But more importantly, what happens is you throw them down into that lower centers of the brain where they become unconscious. And then these unconscious behaviors run our lives, the rest of our lives, and they stop our ability to have our free will. Historically, too, we have thought, oh, well, let's just do stimulus response. Let's do it like a red light, green light. Let's give you a gummy bear if you do something good, or let's take away recess if you do something bad. Stimulus response. And we thought those were very, very successful. But the stimulus response paradigm, again, is in the lower part of the brain. It's in that CD-ROM area. It's in the emotional system. And so what we do is we build a CD-ROM for kids that, again, is unconscious. We don't allow them to access their free will. And that is what we need if you're going to have a democratic society. Free will means I can self-govern myself. I can choose wisely. Our whole judicial system is based on you knew better about what you're doing. So it's based on this conscious awareness. I asked you, do you believe in free will or not? In 1971, B.F. Skinner wrote in his book, Beyond Freedom and Dignity, and he stated, behavior reflects nothing more than conditioned response to stimuli. The behavioral programs we use for discipline in the majority of our schools and the majority of our home believes free will is a myth or a metaphor. So if you do believe in free will, then we need to all make some changes about how to truly access the higher centers of our brain and have children exercise them. Without the development of these prefrontal lobes, we can expect more in crime, drug abuse, bullying, and loss of human potential. So we've got to do it differently. So right now, I want you to start exercising your power of free will. First thing you can do, change your I should to I could. I should stop and get some milk before I go home. I could stop and get some milk before I go home. Make it be a choice. I should get this done this weekend. I could get this done this weekend. What will I choose, Becky? What will you choose to do this weekend? Give children 2 positive choices, focused on what you want them to do. You can start on at the top of your math page with number 1 and do 1, or you can start with number 3 and work up. Which one's best for you? You can ride my piggyback up to bed, or you can hop like a bunny. Which one's best for you? You can do your homework at the table, or you can lay on the floor. Which one is best for you? As opposed to you can eat what I cooked you, or you can starve. So that we shift from manipulating to truly getting children practice of making a choice, practice of using their will. We can also start giving to others what you think you are lacking. Ooh, big one, huh? So I think I'm not getting enough love, attention, validation. If you're not getting enough of those things, start giving them to other people. That's how you actually fill up. And the reason I say we've got to start giving what we think we're missing as opposed to getting. Giving requires making a willful choice, and also self-control, which is free want as opposed to free will, fatigues. It fatigues. It's like a muscle. So every time one of those unconscious things bubbles up to the surface and I need to stop that impulse to act. It's like exercising my bicep. And after, if you've ever done bicep curls, after about, 210 or 212, I'm just teasing, after around 25 or 30 of them, your muscle goes, I've had it. And the same thing with self-control. So as we try to get things, that means we have to stop what's happening and make it a different way. We try to control out here, and that requires a lot of free want as opposed to free will. It fatigues your self-control, and next thing you know, you're on a diet and you order a pizza. So it's a sabotage. So start giving instead of getting. And the last one is we got to change our job description. I talked earlier about the traditional discipline and about conscious discipline. So traditional discipline was my job is to make you behave, and your job, of course, as children, is to make my job hard in that regard. So we're going to change it to my job is to keep you safe, and your job is to help keep it safe. And when we focus on safety and get off the good-bad paradigm, then we can let that energy, that sense of safety, calms the lower centers of the brain. And when we feel safe, we're able to connect with people, which calms that emotional system, which then allows us to come up to this higher center and exercise our free will, which means look around, appraise the situation, and make my next wisest, best choice based on all the factors that I'm facing. If we're going to change our job description, my job is to keep you safe, your job is to help keep it safe. Safety requires all these things. So I want you to take a breath with me and just listen. Safety requires we own our own upset. In other words, when I'm upset, it's because I was triggered. You can't make me upset. That goes back to the power of perception. We focus on giving instead of getting. We accept the moment as it is. We quit fighting to control it, allowing our self-control powers to stay strong. We give ourselves permission to ask questions and seek help. We allow ourselves to be assertive and focus on what we want to happen. We focus again on what we want instead of what we don't want, and we allow ourselves to oops and make mistakes. Now that's a huge list. If you looked at that list I just gave, that's like mental health graduate level. That's huge list. So if my job is to keep you safe, I have a huge task to do as an adult, which means I must exercise my power of free will. And safety comes from a conscious adult. A conscious adult requires we access our prefrontal lobes and we strengthen them. So what can we do? What can we do to this power of free will is so vital to the success of any society. We have got to shift from these stimulus response discipline programs that we use at home and in school, and we have to flip over to a stimulus, pause, think, reflect, stimulate the prefrontal lobe, then respond. Conscious discipline helps you access your brilliance and pass it on to children. So I encourage you this next month until we meet again to exercise your power of free will and your power of free want. Use your self-control. Know that it's happening before you even consciously aware of it, and you have time. You have the time to make a different choice, even if you started to choose this one. Until next time,